Now, as you know, Cincinnati City Council on December 30th voted to not only have a new budget for 2011, but in that budget voted to repeal the Cincinnati Marijuana Ordinance that for the last 5 years has been causing folks to be arrested in Cincinnati. That is no longer on our books, and as you know, I've been thanking the different ones personally over the last couple of weeks on this issue, and this past Tuesday we had an interview with Todd Portune, our county commissioner, who was a major hand in that. So stay tuned. In just a few minutes, we're going to be airing an interview that I think was a fantastic interview. Was it not, Burnman?
Yeah, I like Pot. I like that guy.
Todd Portune is, as far as I'm concerned, the best
Real
politician,
person.
The absolute most fantastic politician that we have in our fair city, our county, and our state. And I hope he goes further, except that I would hate to lose him out of Cincinnati area and the county here, because he is what is known as a true, legitimate, truthful politician. And so stay tuned for that.
Hey,
Hi.
how are you?
Wonderful.
Sorry, I'm just
That's all right. You're
engrossed in
finishing your
everything here.
How
Yeah,
are you?
good to see you. Hi.
This is my friend Chuck.
Hi, Chuck. How are you?
Okay.
He's the Birdman on our radio
Got it.
show
Good
on
mate.
TV.
I got some dental work done this morning.
Did you?
I feel like I went through the windshield of a car.
I know exactly how you feel. I'm going for a root canal Thursday myself. It'll be the
Yeah.
third on the same tooth.
Wow.
So I feel for you. This is our
Happy Hemptress.
this is our latest brochure. You know, I've been that since the early '90s when I was on Wave Radio. That's
Yeah.
how that got started.
Wow. Okay.
And that's what we do. We do. Of course, I mentioned on the phone we have a new radio station
Yes, you did.
that I'm a part of. It's out at the Media Bridges, WVQC,
Uh-huh.
LP, low power
Yeah.
to the people, as they say.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, Todd, let me ask you, how long have you been county commissioner now?
I'm in my 11th year now.
11 years.
It's hard to believe.
It's like you were on council yesterday.
Well, it doesn't seem that way to me.
I
Let
bet
me
it
tell you,
doesn't.
although I really can't believe it's been that long, because when I got elected, it was such a breakthrough. There hadn't been a Democrat elected for 36 years,
Yeah.
and now here I've been able to stay there for that long.
And how long were you on
Developed
council?
quite a base of support. 4 full terms on council. I was term limited there, so
Yeah.
it's been a real career now at this point. I'm going into 19 years in elected office.
Fantastic. Well, I've been active about 21 years myself, and I know
Yeah.
you've been around most of that. And I have to say personally, you're my favorite local politician.
You're kind.
And no, you have fought the fight, the good fight.
Yeah.
Sometimes you've lost, of course, as you know. We
True.
won't digress about the stadium. But everything that I have seen that you do, and I think that's one of the reasons why you have the support base that you do here in the tri-state, in this city specifically and in the county, is because you are not always one-sided. You want to do what's right for the city. And you've got support from all sides, I think, and that's what's helped. And I can certainly appreciate that.
Well, thank you.
But, we've known each other now, I guess, since about 1997.
Right.
As you know, a friend of ours, councilman from Arlington Heights, Roland Haney, had won by very few votes, by 3 or 4 votes in 1997, and they almost kept him off that council in 1997-98 inauguration.
True.
And we asked you to help us, and you came out to the Haney's house in Arlington Heights on January 1st. It's 14 years ago this month, or 13 years ago actually, because it was 98 at the time, and swore in Roland Haney as councilman.
Yeah.
In Arlington Heights, and it was on Channel 19 News, and it was for us a very, very big thing to have you out there to do that.
I remember that well.
Yeah.
In fact, that year, we both digress here, but
That's okay.
that was the year that the Bearcats went to their first bowl game since the 50s. They went to the Humanitarian Bowl,
Yes.
this thing out in Boise, Idaho. And their program continued to progress ever since. The reason I remember that is my mother, who was alive at the time, bled red and black UC. She loved UC. And so my brothers and I, we chipped in and sent Mom out to that bowl game as a Christmas present.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of fun. But that time period really sort of indelibly etched in my mind, and it did include getting to know Roland a lot better, and the swearing-in ceremony out at his house in Arlington Heights on New Year's Day.
Yeah.
It was a nice ceremony, and Roland was a guy who, as you know, kind of put it on the line and stuck his neck out there. And,
Yes, he did.
And attracted, unfortunately, a lot of hate from people who didn't want to be exposed what they were doing. One of those things being the
Sounds like the Twilight Zone.
yeah, it does. I hear that. I expect to see Rod Serling's ghost over here somewhere.
Along with Roland, since he did pass.
But one thing Roland drew attention to was sort of that money gravy train that was being done with the speed enforcement on 75 by
With the Arlington Heights.
And unfortunately, it did more than just bring money into the village. It also resulted in an inordinate number of deaths from high-speed chases as people got spooked. Usually it was kids who were not doing anything really bad, but
Stealing a car and fleeing.
well, not even that bad. I mean, that's bad enough, but you might have had some kids who had a joint on them.
Yes.
And they got spooked by the fact that the police were after them, and they fled.
That's right.
And lost control of the vehicle, and you'd have one or more people dead.
Two, actually, at the time, in the late 90s.
Yeah, it was a bad deal.
Yeah, that was one of the things that the Hades and Roland, specifically as a councilman, was always against, was high-speed chases.
Right.
Because it results in deaths that are not necessary. And mostly young kids or innocent people walking by as the cruiser or the other car goes flying by and kills them.
Right.
And so that definitely is something that he fought against, as well as fighting for medical marijuana. As you know, he was a medical patient. He, unfortunately, sometime after that inauguration, a few years later, as a councilman, he passed away due to stomach cancer.
Right.
And he was a medical marijuana user. And one of the things I remember mostly is that the council was doing everything that they could out of Arlington Heights, and they were threatening to make all the council people pee in a cup for urine testing. And if they failed, they wouldn't be allowed to be on council. And of course, he fought that because it's unconstitutional. As you know, you can't make a politician pee in a cup.
Yep.
And so he won that fight as well, and many others. So, along with Roland, working in the small community, there's only 1,100 average voters registered in the city of Arlington Heights. It's a very small community.
Correct.
And, but outside of Cincinnati, and yourself also being one of those supporters as well. And of course, knowing all of these things and knowing you this long and knowing that you supported our issues, and I'm sure you remember, of course, in 97, 98, 99, while you were still on council, we were going to try to get a medical marijuana ordinance passed here. And at the time, we believed we had 4 votes, but never did get a 5th support out of the council members, which is why we didn't go forward on that. And another reason why I was so upset in 05 when David Pepper, as you know, a fellow Democrat, who was on city council in 2005, wanted to push this marijuana ordinance then. Right. And I was, first of all, very upset and astounded that anybody would even think of doing that in the state of Ohio, much less Cincinnati. And that is one of the reasons why I called you at that time and asked you for your help. So personally, myself, on behalf of everybody that was against that ordinance, I thank you for that time in 2005, because I personally believe that without your call and information going and emails going to David Pepper on how yourself and other people in the community felt about this, I really believe that that's why he pulled it off the table in 2005. So happened I was pleased it was on my birthday as well. Yeah. So it was a birthday present for me. And so I want to thank you for your, although you weren't on council and the county commissioner has no say about city laws, but your influence is what stopped that in 2005.
Well, no influence directly, though. From the county's perspective, we have to provide the money to run the jails, and there's no doubt that that bill was going to have an impact on the jail overcrowding issue, and was going to end up costing the county money from an enforcement perspective. It was a bad bill.
Yes.
And all the excuses that, well, we're really doing this so that we can get people to treatment, etc. All proved
Find all the guns.
All proved to be a bunch of malarkey,
Yes.
and it did nothing except exacerbate some of the problems that we've had to deal with. And statistically, it has been demonstrated time and time and time again that whether it's marijuana, some of the other drug laws, when you're dealing with nonviolent crimes, when you're dealing with the so-called victimless nature of crimes, that to incarcerate people as opposed to dealing with issues from a public health perspective is the wrong way to go about it. I mean, let's be honest. There are people that abuse drugs.
Yes.
Whether they're prescription drugs or non-prescription drugs, people abuse drugs.
That's right.
And whether it's made illegal or not, the fact of the matter is, it is a public health issue and should not be the kind of a thing that leads to jail overcrowding, takes law enforcement away from what their job ought to be, which is really protecting the public peace and providing for public security, going after the violent crimes, the kinds of things that threaten our lives and people's property. That's what I think that most of the general public truly want the dollars that they generously give to us for law enforcement to be devoted to, and not for issues involving drugs that are not also tied to some of those same things. You know, saying that, you also got to be clear that there are drug crimes that are violent, that do cross the line, where
Absolutely.
incarceration is absolutely appropriate. And we're not talking about any of that stuff here.
Yeah.
The Cincinnati marijuana bill really went way too far and was not well thought out. It came at a bad time, and it really didn't serve any good public purpose. And I'm glad that it's off the books.
Absolutely, me too.
Yeah.
And you know, it fell down to, as I said earlier, David Pepper took it off the table in '05, and then a retired African American officer, Cecil Thomas, who's one of our councilmen, picked up that bandwagon. And I think everybody believed him because he was a retired police officer. Oh, he knows best.
Yeah.
He knows what the streets are. And of course the contention was it's going to get all the guns off the street because it'll help us find those weapons on all those pot smokers carrying the guns.
Yeah.
And of course, you know, we built a page dedicated to these stats, CincinnatiMarijuanaLaw.com, to expose these stats from the bottom up and the top down, from how many guns are being seized each year, how many arrests for this each year, how many shootings, and blah, blah, blah. And it proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that the law was not working, didn't do what it was intended to do, and in fact, as Wendell Young pointed out, it was keeping people from going to college.
Yeah.
You know, what better way to keep somebody down who's poor but to take away their ability to go change their life for a better? And that was one of the things that we tried to stress on everybody on the council at the time, both in '05, '06, and then '07 when it was put back on the books after the first year, was that the same people you're trying to say you want to save from the guns are the same people you're not going to be able to save, because they won't be able to get a better education to either get out of the drug dealing business in the streets, or even better than going to work at McDonald's and stuff. And now the economy, the way it is really where I wanted to hit this thing, and why I wanted to build this website and show the facts to the council and the city that it was not working. It was costing us more money. We have no money. They had to cut budget here and there, and what better place to cut it but then a place that's not working.
Yeah.
So of course the irony, of course, then was a retired African American police officer is who put it on the table to have it repealed.
Yeah.
So it was a retired cop against a retired cop.
There's some poetic justice in all
Wasn't
that,
it?
I guess.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. So now we haven't had a chance. We plan to go talk to some of the other council members. We did speak to Laurie Quinlivan, the Vice Mayor, Roxanne Qualls, and Wendell Young. I still personally want to thank Cecil Thomas, myself personally, because he ended up being the deciding vote, Todd. It was a 5-4 vote in the end on December 30th, and Cecil was the deciding vote. And I was as surprised as anybody that he would have been the one to overturn his own bill.
Yeah.
And
Well, I think Cecil had some misgivings about it, and I think he always did. it reached out to council members in both '05 and again in '07.
Yes.
And throughout some of these discussions, that the impact of that bill on the county's problems was repeatedly evaluated and discussed, and I would reach out at times. Cecil, I think, always felt a little bit uneasy about it. He was a new council person back in relatively new in '05. I think
06, yeah.
I think he was persuaded that that there was, by others who were pushing it, that there was good intent behind it. He was willing to try to see if it would work. But I never, even though Cecil ultimately did support it then in '07, I never got a feeling that he was a real sort of gung-ho champion. This is the exactly what we need kind of a
He was
kind of
doing
person.
somebody else's work.
I think he was.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think that he always felt that if the time would come when he might be able to revisit that decision, that he'd take advantage of it.
Yeah.
And so he did.
Yeah, and I'm proud of him for that, because
Yeah.
I always felt that it wasn't his idea to begin with. We knew it wasn't Cecil's idea.
Right.
It came from originally David Pepper and whoever he was working with at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, a lot of people go, oh, you know, those politicians that switch, they're no good when they change their mind. Why should we stay stringent against something that's not working? The best politician is the one who will go, I was wrong, and change it.
Yeah, I would hope that that people would have a different view and, in fact, encourage folks in elected office to be willing to challenge themselves about their opinions and always be open for to be proven wrong.
Absolutely.
You don't. This notion that everybody knows everything and there's only one answer and it's rigid and that's the way it is and always will be is preposterous.
It is.
I mean, it really is. If you want to be run by robots, great, but that's not what our form of government was set up to do. It was designed to produce robust debate about issues, designed for the clash of ideas to take place within a civil setting, so that our arguments as a nation and as a people would be fought in the halls of legislatures and not on the streets of our communities. I mean,
Exactly.
that's how it's supposed to work. But if you are rigid and you never change and you're never willing to accept another point of view, and you're not willing to debate and certainly not willing to be civil about it, that is a recipe for those fights then to be fought in the street.
That's right.
And I'm not saying that we're necessarily heading that way, but the kind of discourse that we have today, or what is masqueraded as discourse, is not the kind of discussion that needs to take place in a healthy democracy.
I agree. Well, you know, you mentioned in '07, that was, I remember we had from LEAP, Law Enforcement Against Prohibition.
Yep.
If you remember, myself and Howard Wooldridge came
Sure.
from LEAP to discuss it with you at the
In fact,
time.
I've corresponded with Howard
Have you?
this past year.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So he's keeping up with you.
And I with
following
him,
up.
yes.
That's wonderful.
Uh-huh.
You know, he started another organization, as a matter of fact, COPS, Citizens Opposed to Prohibition.
Mm-hmm.
That's his new organization. So that was one of the things that we wanted to do at the time, was incorporate
Yeah.
retired officers that opposed that law. And so great for him doing that. That's
Yeah.
fantastic. Well, I don't want to take too much of your time up. I know you have a lot to do, so before we go, let us know what's going on as county commissioner, what you're doing now, and what you want to see for our fair city and county here.
Well, I'll tell you, the biggest issue right now for everybody are jobs, and anything that we can do on a local level to spark a real resurgence in the local economy. I'm glad that even though we are a diverse commission from a political partisan perspective, and in fact we're really kind of 1-to-1 because you've got Commissioner Monzel, who is a self-avowed representative of the Tea Party.
Oh boy.
You have Commissioner Hartman, who by all public accounts is a moderate Republican, and I can say from personally working with Greg over the past 2 years, I would describe him that way. I mean, he's a Republican, but he's moderate and he's open-minded about things, and he listens and he's willing to hear other ideas, and it's all you can ask of people is that they be willing to do that. And then there's me. So we have three very diverse ways of looking at things on our board, and I think that's going to produce over the next 2 years a very exciting time for the county. I think you're going to see commissioners come together around ideas and around issues because they're the right thing to do and for all the right reasons, and not just that one group is marching in lockstep to a particular partisan agenda or anything like that. So it's going to be good, but the big issue is jobs, and we agree on that whatever we can do to spark a resurgence in the local economy and not wait to be saved by somebody else is what we're going to have to do. We've got to be willing to make strategic investments in things that are going to work. And there are some people who in this day, when the economy is performing as poorly as it is and public revenues are down, I mean, they would have us just sort of curl up in a ball and do nothing and just cut and cut and cut and cut and cut. Well, you're never going to cut yourself to prosperity. It's just not going to happen. And there are people who need help, who we have to do things for. So we've got to take those steps, make those strategic investments, and at the same time, we've got to make sure that we continue a full menu of services from the county, because there are people who are in need of help. Now, I wrote Commissioner Monzel when before he took office. I wrote him a letter in anticipation of his swearing in, which occurred within a week of me sending this to him. But one of the mantras of the Tea Party is that government's bad. Government's the problem. The government's bad. We need less of it everywhere, and the more we can have none of it, the better off we all are. Which is kind of interesting in terms of people who want to be a part of government, who things. I won't go down that path, but
I will, because he supported the marijuana ordinance. He was one of those votes for that ordinance. So.
Well, yeah, and he was the author actually of another bill dealing with sexual predators that has done nothing but cause problems for the county that we're actually dealing with in a proactive way. Well, it did was kick your registered sex offenders out of communities like Cincinnati into the bedroom communities of the county, where they don't have the authority to write laws like that.
Yeah.
So it produced this out-migration.
So now they're hiding in the suburbs.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And the then councilman didn't really care, but now he's a commissioner, and those are his constituents. Yeah. And I'm getting off track. But what I wrote to Chris was, I sent him a letter, and I said, if you really want to know anything about me, it's this, in terms of my view of government. And there's a book from the New Testament in the Bible that is actually one of my favorite books. It's the book of Romans. And in there, the Apostle Paul is writing all about, it's really a blueprint to a lot of things, but there's an entire chapter devoted to government and the role of government in the world. And government is a good thing, and we need government. We need people who want to be leaders, who are there not to divide and not to tear things down, but actually to do good work, because there are people who are in need of help. And I wrote to Chris, I said, if you ever want to know anything about me in terms of government, that's it. I don't view government as the enemy. I view it as an instrument of good, to help people who are in need. That's what I think we need to do. And I hope that his service as a commissioner will result in an awakening in him of the real spirit of what being an elected leader is all about. Yeah. It's not to tear down, not to divide. It's really to build up and to unite, and hopefully he will.
I agree. Again, people can change. Cecil did. So I'm hoping that Chris realizes the folly in his vote for that ordinance and changes some of those perspectives to realize that government is there to do good things and not stop people from doing what this country is supposed to be free.
Right.
And just an example, and I try to be non-partisan as far as what party. I don't stay with any one, because there are people with the Republican Party that I support, Gary Johnson for one, who plans to possibly run for president next time. And then of course yourself. Now there's a Democrat out of Iowa that we heard about recently, that the first bill that's going up for legislation in Iowa this year is to outlaw any alcoholic beverages that have caffeine in it. First one is Kahlua, and the Black Russians and the rum and cokes are going to be out the window.
Wow.
He's trying to target like the Red Bull and the different things like that have now added alcohol, where kids can go buy the alcohol drink that it also has a kick of caffeine in it. But he's written it in such a way that it'll even include rum and cokes and Black Russians and things like that. Any kind of liqueur that might have some caffeine in it. And it's just another one of those examples of another law that's not going to work. And so, there's...
Well, I don't get that.
We don't either. Look it up. It's out of Iowa.
I'll do that.
And it is their first bill that's coming up in their legislature this year is to outlaw alcoholic beverages with caffeine.
You would think that there are more important issues to worry about, but hey.
You got too many people making laws.
The end of our show, our last segment was our Chef Pottenhash, our HempRock Cafe segment, brought in a list of crazy laws that are still on the books around the country. And one of them was in California, I think, where guys can't sit in front of their TV and watch sports in their underwear while drinking a beer. I swear to God, Todd, it's really on the books. He found this on the internet.
Eating ice cream with a fork.
Can't eat ice cream with a fork in public. In one of the California cities, and we're
really?
Redwood
really
or something
needed
like
a
that?
job. And that's just a list of 10 that he ran off on the end of the show.
So,
Interesting.
It was so funny.
Yeah.
Just unbelievable things that people
Wild
come
stuff.
up with. Crazy
stuff. Yeah.
So, Todd, I don't want to take any more of your time. I know you have to go. So once again, I want to thank you for everything that you did, whether it was in 05, 06, 07, 97 with Mr. Haney and everything, and all that you do. And you have our support here at HempRock. And one last note: you mentioned that Chris is with the Tea. We have started with a national group, the Teapot Party, on behalf of Willie Nelson, who was recently busted again in Texas for a small amount of marijuana. So Willie put out the word, I want to start the Teapot Party, and our motto is, we lean a little to the left. And our mission is to tax, regulate, and legalize marijuana. And why should the cartels make all the money? The bad guys, they shouldn't be making the money.
Well, I mean, people have said for a long time that to legalize and regulate and tax drugs is one of the answers to our financial ills as a nation. There certainly is a better answer than the so-called war on drugs, which is really nothing more than a war on us.
That's right.
I mean, it's a war on America, fought by Americans internally, and nothing's been won. Nothing's being changed.
More people dying every day.
It has sparked so much violence and despair and grief and poverty. I don't know. I would hope that we all live to see a day when some sanity is interjected into the discussion.
Let's bring some sanity back to our country.
Let's hope. Let's hope, Lynn.
Thank
all right.
you.
Thanks.
I'll be talking to you again.
Okay.
Alrighty.